today?
That's awesome.
Awesome. Good morning. We made it. Friday.
Hey, good Friday.
Last one
Good
in
Friday
August.
morning to you. Yeah, I just barely made it in today. It was just one of those crazy mornings where there's so many things going on. And it was like, but I got to get here to my favorite Friday event, my favorite weekly event, my Facebook Fridays with Jay.
Awesome. Well, we have a great lineup. Thanks so much for bringing this guest today, Sean. It's your relationship and your childhood connections that was able to get today's guest on the show. You want to introduce our morning and see what we're about to do?
Well, first, let's say, the show is brought to you by Heyler Realty and all the activities.
Yes.
I like to
absolutely.
do that. I want everybody to know that those are the efforts. That's everything that makes this little vehicle work. But this little vehicle works for exactly what you've led to, which is introduction to people that are in our community, that are significant in our lives, that contribute to a quality of life that we all know. And this gentleman that's about to join us, Paul Tyler, I've had the pleasure of knowing for many, many years. Our paths really kind of went parallel for a very long time. I actually knew his father and his mother before I knew Paul. Paul was a year or two younger behind me, I think, in grade school and high school. But he had a tremendous reputation, and he was well known as an athlete, a competitor, and a good thinker. And then as Paul were to grow into his business, I think he went to Cornell University. Like, he's a bright guy, and studied, I want to say hospitality, I think, restaurants. He'll tell us a little bit more. But he came in and he took that family business, that mom and pop, really corner cafe kind of feel that they had really developed over the years, and just moved it to a next level. And now I would refer to John O'Groats Restaurant as an institution. It's literally like a landmark on the west side of LA, and a huge amount of those props go to Paul. So I'm excited to be able to bring him on.
Awesome. Well, let's bring him in and get to say hello. There's Paul.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey there. Good morning, Paulie. Great. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for making the time, brother. I really appreciate it. You're a busy man with a busy life and a lot of things going on.
I'm happy to be here. I'm here at the front basically, so I'm socially distanced, but I'm still, keeping an eye and being here at the same time. So I appreciate it.
Oh no, it's all, there's just so much to get into with you, Paul, in particular. And I know that I'm extremely grateful for you making the time. I mean, this is breakfast time. This is brunch time.
I got a full sidewalk, so it's all good.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about that for a half second. Here's John O'Groats, institutional restaurant on the west side of LA, serving up the best for nothing but the best, which is like the company motto, right? Like, you guys really took that to.
It's a long story. I was in college.
And you have this really.
Go ahead, say it again.
Right? No, I was just going to say, you please go.
Oh, well,
I was going to say, I was leading you up to college.
Well, what I was going to say was real fast.
How did that come about?
My fraternity brother came up with the term because he was setting me up on a blind date. He says, "Hey, Paul," he goes, "You know what? Only the best for the best." I'm like, "All right." So then when we started, little taglines for John O'Groats, I thought that's a good one. So I always give him credit. He always says, "You got to name something after me on the menu after me." So.
I think there's like a little delay technology going on. So.
Oh, can you hear me right now?
You're fine. I think there's a little bit of a delay. In today's day and age, we got to go with the flow of the technological challenges that keep arising week in and week out. And it is our new reality is not only to be and embrace technology to its fullest, because that's how we're staying connected. Unfortunately, it has glitches. It's not the same as being in person. So I think Sean's feed at our office seems to be a little bit more delayed the last couple of times. And I don't know if just the internet is wonky or whatever the case might be, but it just keeps not being, there's a delay in the feedback sometimes. So it's been challenging. But
I can hear you loud and clear, and your mouth is moving at the same rate as you're speaking.
Yeah, Sean's fading in and out right there.
All right.
There you are, Sean.
He looks good.
I know. I was just checking my Wi-Fi real quick to make sure. Can you hear? Thank you. Thank you, Paulie.
You're
Thank you
welcome,
very
brother.
kindly for that. That's part of my daily regimen. Hey, I wanted to say a lot of different things about John O'Groats and you in particular and who you guys are in the community. And one of the things I wanted to address though was how you've had to adapt from turning over however many tables you did on any given day, which is just must have been a tremendous number, to all of a sudden finding COVID-19 restrictions in a restaurant and like, oh my gosh, the brakes are on. What are we going to do? And tell us a little bit about what went through your mind and what were the strategies for you to continue to thrive? Because I see now as I drive by a thriving quasi-Parisian, a breakfast place outside. I love it.
Well, first and foremost, I've got a lot of wonderful employees. I've surrounded myself with people who care about what we do here. And so, you get the news that, oh God, you got to shut down. Well, what does that mean? That means no income, and how are we going to do that? And then they said, well, okay, you can do takeout and delivery. This is March 16th. And, we have immediately, said, okay, well, we can fulfill takeout orders. We'll do that to the best of our ability. And, you learn, okay, what's important in takeout? Well, the food has to be delicious. It has to be hot. It has to look good. So, making those adjustments to make sure that we're doing all those things right. And then as the orders start to come in and increase and you move to different platforms, Grubhub, DoorDash, Postmates, whatever those are, then you start to receive more orders and you have to be more organized as doing that because, if you're providing food, on the tables and servers are picking them up, and now you have drivers that are picking up food and they're identifying as, well, I have number 806 or I have Sean B. You have to make sure that those orders are going out exactly as they were requested and double checking and triple checking things. And so, it took us a couple of weeks to really get used to it because we were busy up to a point. It was fine. And then it started to get really, people were ordering more and more online over the phone. It was just kind of keeping that straight and making that adjustment so that we were doing that as well as in-house dining, that we were accomplishing both tasks equally, not one was better than the other. And so now we seem to have gotten it pretty good. We're busy. We're not doing the same numbers, obviously, as we were, but, we're, like you said, the sidewalk is full. It's full all day long. So we're keeping our employees working. We're generating income. The takeout and delivery is working well for us.
Well, the fried chicken was darn good, but I have to tell you, not only is the fried chicken good, I have a new addiction.
What's that?
The new addiction is the cheesy grits. Oh my God. How is it I've gone 27 years here in Los Angeles and I've never ordered the cheesy grits from your restaurant, but now it's one of the sides in that family meal. And right. I had it last Wednesday for my brother-in-law's birthday dinner. And I am like, I literally scraped the bottom of the bowl and I licked the bowl. That was so good. And I'm hooked. It's a bad addiction now.
Well, that's okay. We can provide you, it's everything in moderation, as I always say.
Well, what's funny about that, Paul, is that is about the highest compliment you can get. Because Jay Wu does not eat foods that are not like, really paleo or extremely good and efficient
for our body.
I remember
when you started that diet, that when you started that lifestyle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it is a lifestyle choice, right?
It is, without a doubt. You have to kind of, the machine needs the right fuel.
Well, as we age, the octane has to be a little bit more pure in order to not, overblow ourselves. So
right, exactly.
The indulgences, though, life, you only live once. You got to indulge.
Well, I've always treated your restaurant, Paul, as a treat. It's one of those places where you go when you want something that's really comfortable. The environment's warm and friendly. Your servers, obviously you being the proprietor. I mean, I can't even believe you must have an eidetic memory because you seem to know thousands of people by name. You just, hey, Bill, how's it going? How's Sally doing? Or, you know,
It works.
it's
I
astounding.
mean, especially in this industry, I do have a really good memory. I used to practice using it a lot as a child, and you know, I have it's just really, really sharp. So I'm grateful for that, especially doing what I do, because it makes a giant difference. There'll be times when I haven't seen somebody for maybe a decade or two, and I knew them, but you know, when you don't see somebody for a long time and you constantly meet, you know, thousands of people each week or see 1,000 people, and they'll come into the restaurant and I'll look at them, I'm like, I know them. And then before they leave, I'm like, bye, Bill. And I'm like, it was in the file somewhere.
You just find that little
Yeah, I'm
neuron
like, oh
fires.
my God, I'm so surprised that happened. And how did I pull that out? But it happens.
Well, you know, Paulie, I want to talk a little bit about the history of the restaurant, because I think it's important to know. I grew up here on this side of town, much like you, and I knew your father, Bob Jacoby's restaurant that was up there on bit of Scotland, which was up on, I think, just north of Lagrange and Westwood Boulevard.
Yeah. It was in between Lagrange and Missouri on the east side of the street.
Okay. And it was in the back, right? Wasn't there like a driveway you had to kind of go in the back for it? Maybe I'm mixing that up, but I do remember.
Okay. It was set off the street on Westwood Boulevard. And so there was a large parking lot. Then there was the house. And that's how the structure Bit of Scotland was.
The Bit of Scotland to me, to this day, if you said, Sean, it's your birthday, you want to have something. If I could go back in time and get the butterfly shrimp from Bit of Scotland, that would be my first choice. It's literally ingrained in my memory cells as one of the more pleasurable experiences of my life, and it was just such a warm, loving thing. And then of course your dad, the way he had his personality, right? He looked gruff, but he was really warm. So it was like this kind of thing where you'd see Bob, and he was, you know, he'd talk to you, but he's such a soulful, good man. And then after time, that transitioned, and they moved over to, was it Good Home Cooking that was happening on Manning and Pico? How did that start over there? The Hosher Cafe, as I recalled it.
So what happened was, my Bob is my stepdad, but he raised us, you know, and he's my dad. And he and my mom started seeing each other while he was the owner of Bit of Scotland. He actually, at that point, was he was getting divorced from his wife, and they owned the restaurant together. And then my mom came into the picture, and Bob and his ex-wife operated the restaurant with my mom for about 2 years. So we were there, and
wow.
Yeah, so it got to a point in 1981 where they said, you know what, 2 families in one restaurant's a little too much, especially the dynamics of it. So he and my mom decided to open up John O'Groats, and they looked around, and the Good Home Cooking spot had been vacant for a few months, maybe a year, because the Cardinis had taken over, if you remember them. And Leon and his family, they had a woodworking shop down the street.
I remember Leon.
And he did a lot of work for Liberace. Yeah, Leon and little Leon and Leon. The whole family, everybody's name was Leon. There was Leon and Leon.
By the way, little Leon was somebody that if you knew he was after you, you had a problem. That was not going to be good for you. He was a tough guy.
He had a collection of swords. He was a great guy. He was a nice kid too. But you know, I went over to the house one time. He's like, "Yeah, Paulie, I want to show you this collection of swords." They were cool. So, anyways, the spot became available, and my mom and my dad went and looked at it, and it was just a counter, and the kitchen was no bigger than a closet. It was probably 8 by 12. Maybe it was just it was a stove or a griddle and a refrigerator. And then around the corner was this 3-compartment sink. And they decided to take a gamble. They didn't have a lease. They rented it month to month. And they went in and they opened. And I believe we opened, the date was February 26th of 1982.
Wow.
So I was a sophomore in high school. And I'll never forget washing the dishes that first weekend. In fact, it was before we opened. So we opened on a Wednesday, I think. And that weekend, I washed what seemed to be like this mountain of dishes. You know, I'm a sophomore in high school, so what do I know? And so they opened up, and my mom was the waitress, and my dad was the cook. And that's how they would go to work together. And they stayed
Oh.
up just for breakfast and lunch so they could be at home with us at nighttime.
That's right.
Because,
That's right.
you know, part of the reason my dad had a falling out with his family, he was never home at night. So
Mm.
me and my mom really paid attention to that. And they'd be home by 5 o'clock or earlier. They'd close at 3. And then we were there for 2 years. We were at that 10560, I think was the address. And then they sold the property, and Pep Boys took it over and made it their parking lot. So my parents had to look for another location in the neighborhood. And, you know, they finally found this space at 10516 Pico. It was at a vacant building. It had 3 storefronts. My dad said, you know, I can't take all of them. He didn't want to gamble like that. He said, I'm just going to take the one. It was 1,200 square feet. He and my mom built it out themselves. They contracted it. So they built the counter and did all the plumbing, because this was not a restaurant. It was just a vacant building. And so they built it out, and then that was the storefront on the far west side where the counter is. And then next door to us in the middle was a video store. It was called Select Video, if you remember that. And then the far east side was the Siam Cottage.
Yes.
So,
oh my God. Siam
So
Cottage.
those were the 3, and that was in June of 1984. So this is right before my freshman year in college. And so that I just graduated from Loyola High School, and we were building out the restaurant. It was probably in June. And so I think we opened in late June. And I had to help build the interior and put the stools at the counter. And I remember it was so hot one day and there was no air conditioning, and I had been out with some friends before, you know, I just graduated. So we were having a good time. And my dad left me, and he says, when I get back, I want those stools finished. And I had to drill the holes into the ground with this industrial drill that drilled concrete. And so that was my job. And so we opened up June of 84. And my freshman year I remember meeting people that had gone to my college, and they came to visit. And my parents, you know, we hosted them here at the restaurant. And it was, it was really something. I remember working with them for that first, 3 or 4 weeks before I went to school.
Well, you know what's awesome though, is that when you have a line around the block and have a robust breakfast and lunch business, who needs to stay open for dinner, right? And you can be home with your family. It was the breakfast place. I mean, the 90s, 2000s, I mean, you always, if you didn't get there before 9 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday, you're waiting in line for an hour or 2.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I mean, when this is over, we get our bearings back, I mean, it still has been that way, I mean, I'm amazed and I'm grateful, obviously, but that I have that many people, by 9 o'clock, I know, Jesus, I better get there, otherwise it's gonna be a line outside and manage that. But when my parents opened it, it was just the one storefront, and there'd be a line out front, literally like an hour long, and we sat 30 people. That's how many people fit in the restaurant. And then when we took the middle spot, people were like, oh, it's going to be too big, it's going to lose its personality. And you know what? I think for us, and for us to live this lifestyle, to be here, that was, the whole thing is just making sure that people were taken care of. So we transitioned into taking this middle spot, and then finally the third spot seamlessly, because we're here, we're keeping an eye on what's happening. I mean, I know it's a double-edged sword, because if I'm not here, people will say, oh, it's just not the same when you're not there. And I get it, I understand. So I don't get a lot of days off, but
Right.
you know, my days are filled with doing something that I really like doing. You know, I really
Well,
appreciate being here, and I appreciate the people and how much love they show for us, you know?
well,
That's a
that's a
double-edged sword of owning a business, though, right? It's like
Yeah,
you are the cover.
that's it.
You're the main you're the main attraction, and
Yeah.
so everything else is amazing. But you know, you're the reason people look forward to connecting with you, and you are this personality, and that's gregarious and welcoming, and that is the extra cherry on top to the whole experience, right? So,
I had good
but
teachers. So
yes. But then also
my
it's like,
mom,
what do you
my
get to
mom used to
do? Do you
say,
get to have hobbies? Do you get to do other things? I mean, do you get to enjoy other?
oh yeah, I mean, look, you know, I love what I do here, but you know, I appreciate fitness. For years, I coached football at Loyola High School. And
Oh,
that
I didn't
was,
know that.
oh, I coached for almost 15 years. In fact, I
Wow.
coached Sean's son.
that's a good-
Sean's son is the recipient of an award that I received while I
That's
was
right.
there. First
That's right.
recipient of he's a neighbor here too, and he's a booster at Loyola High School. His name's Pat Jacobs. So that's a shout out to Pat. And he was a Loyola fanatic. I mean, the football program, everything about it Pat was like spearheaded. And so there was an award that Pat started. It was about somebody who was dedicated to Loyola football, hard work, leadership, etc. And I was the first recipient in 1983 of the Pat Jacobs.
Oh,
And so Sean's son, who I had the pleasure of coaching, won that his senior year. And
wow. I got
so
goofies. That's
yeah,
amazing.
football's a big deal to me. It shaped who I was as a young man.
Wow.
Well, it shows in your physicality, Paul. Anybody shakes your hand or brings it in for a hug, which we'll do post COVID, knows they kind of feel like, ooh, Paul's a ball of muscle. You know, you've always been known for fitness and strength. And I know that my son, you've been so warm and loving, and that was that kind of fine line, kind of the way that we grew up with that discipline of hard work and industriousness, but there's also the love and the nurturing that's so important. And I think that's a lot of what John O'Growth reflects in a community. We know it's a whole lot of hard work. Somehow you make it look really graceful, and somehow it's very dedicated. We know you're busy, but there's always that invitation to come on in and sit down. And the way it's decorated has always made it feel very homey. Of course, I'm incredibly partial to that counter. In fact, sometimes I'm intimidated because that jettisons me back at a time to the original Corner Cafe and the Horseshoe that I can so clearly remember. And of course, we have other history where
You know what?
My cousin Christy.
I was gonna say, I found a picture on my, it was a slide my dad had, and I have a picture of it, the old joint. And I'm like, wow, I hadn't seen these people in 35 years. So,
Wow.
but go on, Sean, please.
No, I could go on forever. I mean, there's so much to it that's important, but I also want to give a shout out to my cousin Christy, if she's walking, Christy Walker, because I know that was her first waitressing job, was working for your folks over at that. And I don't know if she was Corner Cafe. Maybe she was, or I call it Corner Cafe just because of the locale.
Do you remember when she worked at Papa Pete's?
Yeah, I do.
She worked at
wow.
Your cousin, I loved Christy because she was kind of like my mentor. You know, she was a couple years older. She went to Marymount, and you know, we all went to school together at St. Paul's. But I remember she came to work, and I was, probably about 16 or 17 years old. And she, came to work, and she managed the restaurant for my mom when my mom wasn't there, and this is a kind of a funny story, but I have to tell it real fast. It's about your cousin. And she was managing the restaurant for mom and dad. So she would go in and open up. And I think when we first were here at the location here on Pico, the new location with the 10516. And so she was managing, and there was a waitress that worked for my mom very briefly, and she came in and she had her eyelashes on her eyebrows. And Christy didn't know what to do with her. You know, obviously she was a little under the weather, shall we say.
Out of it.
She called my mom and she goes, Angelica, what am I going to do with her? And I'll never forget that story. I was a freshman in college, but, you know, I remember that when I got home, you know, Christy like pulled me aside and told me this story. I thought it was great.
You know, waiting tables
It's,
create such you know, that's like that manual labor, people skill, life skill all rolled into one. And those of us who had to grind it out, you know, working at our parents' businesses and waiting tables and really, you know, doing the manual labor as well as the people personable skills it takes to earn a good tip and all of those things and serve others and caretake on people like that. There's a different level of work ethic, I think, in those that have gone through the restaurant business and then other industries. You know, pushing paper is one thing, but really getting in there and, you know, serving trays of food and making sure everything's okay and being kind and good memory and all of those things. It's every kid should be forced to either bus tables or wait tables in their high school formative years as a job, I think. It's like training
It's a
camp.
great skill because you're getting your hands dirty. You have to be constantly on the move. You have to be, you know, in this industry, you have to be personable so that you can remain in business.
Yes.
And if you're not, and you know, I want people who want to be here. You know, if you want just a job, and you don't have an enthusiasm for it, it's hard for me to have you here. I mean, and I think the wonderful commonality that we have with the people that are all working with us is that they're actually enthused to be here. You know, I have people that have worked with me for 25 years more, you know, and kitchen staff, servers, bussers. And I mean, I would say collectively, I have people that have over 100 years of work experience here, more.
Wow.
You know, and that's just, if I think about the kitchen staff, I think I have they're collectively have worked here over 100 years.
Christy is on. She just commented on the Facebook. Christy, your cousin is on here. maybe her ears were burning.
That's great. Hi, Christo.
That's so funny. Oh, I remember. I remember actually, one night I was out all night almost, and you know, God, I was in high school, so and she was working that morning, and I had to come to work, obviously. And she goes, "What did you do last night?" I go, you know, back then, which is such a different time now. But
you're like, kids, earmuffs.
Yeah. But Christy was there, and you know, we kind of like talked about what happened the night before, and she was great. So much fun to work with her. And
one of the things we all did as teenagers.
My cousin has it.
You know, Jack McMillan, he was a great mentor to me. You know, Jack was a pillar of our community. You know, who was at Heyler, right? Yeah. And Ellis Winslow.
You know, Paul, you know the history like I know the history, and that's part of writing, especially when you dropped off I Am, which is of course like this faint whisper of or Christy working at Papa Pete's, another mind-blowing. But to tie that back in, you know, when you reference my Uncle Jack in particular and his boss at that time, Ellis Winslow, so much of what and who I am today and what we do as a business as Heyler is predicated on the foundations he built as a community builder. And that's part of why we recognize John O'Groats is so significant. Heyler has a tremendously old history in the neighborhood since 1927, but John O'Groats is one of those places where there's so much warmth and comfort and so much quality. It's always quality. The consistency is always there, and it reflects and it becomes institutional, and it's those values, right? And that was my uncle's values. He was like, how can I help everyone be better? What can I do to just help everyone? It's that attitude of service. And, you know, he was also another one, to your point as a mentor, hey, there's not a free lunch here. This isn't just going to come down a conveyor belt and it's just going, oh, hey, I got this. It's going to be earned. And when you put in the work, you get the rewards. And you guys now have a restaurant that literally is ranked and rated and notable and is a place to come to. here on the West Side for family comfort food, breakfast food, some of the best.
I mean, what is like, was there anybody that entered a restaurant where you were totally starstruck? Was there anybody that has come to eat at your place where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this?
It's tough because honestly, and there's a lot of people who come through these doors.
Yes.
And they're all movers and shakers, and people who have made a big difference in my life before I met them, and people who literally have touched the lives of billions of people, billions. And so for me to say anybody in particular, I don't know.
How about that guy over your shoulder
right now, guys? I'm emotional because I'm so touched to be doing this. I'm so honored that you guys have asked me to do this and kind of talk about my life. This is crazy. I don't know why I'm getting like that, but I look, everybody that has been through these doors, I'm grateful for. Yeah. Star or not star. There was a woman that used to come here, and her name was Mary Oliver. And she started coming here at the other store, and she was an older woman who worked in the neighborhood. She cleaned houses. And she used to look forward to coming to our restaurant, and she would come on Sundays, and she would wear her Sunday best. And I just remember her so well. She would make us sweet potato pies. And but she valued our friendship so much. And I just remember her and another woman, and she was Mary teacher. And Mary, one time I got in the weeds. Okay, so this is a great story. I got really busy, and I was the only person working at the restaurant. My dad was cooking, and I was a server, and the coffee machine was overflowing, and it kept overflowing because there was this something in the filter was missing. And finally I found it in the trash. But she got from behind the counter, she got from the counter to help me out. And I was 16, 17 years old. And she literally, and I got to know her until she passed. I've 30, 40 years of what I've been doing. And I've gotten to know people's families, their children, their grandparents. I've watched people be 30 years old and I blink my eyes and they're 70 years old. And it's been like that. So Jay, I can't say being starstruck, like this guy over my corner here is LeBron James. I met LeBron when he was an 18-year-old kid, and they would just come in with the boy, me and Rich and Randy and Maverick. And, it's just, yeah, incredible.
Yeah, you're incredible. And I tell you, it wouldn't be a Facebook live show on Facebook Friday if one of us is not crying, because between Sean or myself or guests, this show for some reason creates such bond and depth of stories and just reminiscing back in our lives and our history and history of the neighborhood and community. By the end of the show, someone's crying. So I'm glad it's you this time and not me.
No, seriously. My ears are teary. It's crazy. But,
well,
yeah.
Paulie, we are grateful for you. And that part of our whole idea of reaching out when we think about doing these Facebook Lives, we like to connect with people that are, we merit, they're significant in our lives. We see something of value. We see something where they've resonated, they've created something. And we also recognize the importance, and part of this is our mission, is to illuminate the local businesses that make a difference and how we as a society supporting one another are going to get through all these kind of strange times that we're going through, where everything is so distant or apart or feels contentious. There's commonality. And food is a great commonality. I don't know if you've noted, but lately I've been actually sending a friend of mine from the shelters who lives in a shelter. I gave him a $20 bill and I go, hey, go get your favorite comfort food. And you know where he always goes? He goes to John O'Groats. Yesterday he got chicken and waffles. The day before he got the tuna fish melt. Pardon me?
Is his name Paul? Was that?
Greg. His name is Greg.
Greg. Okay. No, you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
but the point was that it's that's where he's choosing to go and where he's finding warmth and comfort. And he's not from this part of town, but he recognizes something in it that brings him a great deal of joy and pleasure. And I know for a fact, I have to avoid your restaurant for a little while I get my weight down from the COVID. I don't have COVID-15, I have COVID-40. So I'm working on that right now, but I'm looking forward to coming back and getting some of those biscuits. Oh man, God bless it. You've seduced me with those
Thank you.
biscuits and Jay's cheese grits. Now they're on my mind.
I think your son's favorite biscuits are the bacon cheddar biscuits, right?
Oh
my
man, are those good. That just made my mouth water.
We need tissues for the tears and the saliva.
I was gonna say, I feel like Homer Simpson drooling.
It's so funny. Well, Paul, in wrapping up, I'm just curious, like, how is the community and can continue to support you? I know you have your family meals to go. Your sidewalks are open. Hopefully pretty soon everything will be open again. It seems like the infection rates are going down, and slowly but surely we're hitting it, and hopefully we get a reprieve before flu season. But I think you're on the Click Pico website as well. Small business owners can promote themselves there. I think the greatest thing that's happened in the last few months that I've noticed is that the spotlight on supporting small businesses, community, the thread of our community and the foundation of the warmth and the love that happens in a community are small businesses, local businesses, and shopping local. And so for that, I'm really grateful, because we've had an opportunity to illuminate how there is a heart and soul behind. It's not just a meal, it's a lifetime, it's a livelihood. It is the thread of all of these stories that create this warmth and the love that you can feel it. You don't know how or where or why, but it's there. And that's like coming home. And that's what a great meal is like coming home.
Paul, you might want to store that one, coming home. Like a great meal is coming home. Keep that one too.
Honestly, this is our home. And I've always treated it that way. I think my parents treated it that way. This is you guys coming into my home. If you came into my home, would I just let you, sit outside? No, I'd invite you in. I'd offer you something. And that's kind of how they were my teachers in that respect. And I love people. So it was kind of a natural for me. And I'm glad thank you for recognizing that. I love what I do. And my mom always used to say, if the restaurant business, you either have to love it or be crazy, and we're both.
Well, that's also a shout out to your mom, because that is somebody who deserves to be recognized.
That's woman with a lot of chutzpah, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, that woman has no fear. She is right there. She is bold, communicative, and I dare say a lot of that flair that you have comes from your mom. Angelica's always been an angel in my life.
She's a neat lady. I just wanted to give a special shout out to my wife, Lisa.
Yes,
for sure.
I couldn't do this without her. When I was a single man and I was doing this on my own, it was my job, and I would work, 70, 80 hours a week. And then when I got married and I had a family, and she has made this a reality for us. We've been together for 25 years. And so being able to do this and to share that with her and understand our roles, like she's our team captain. I'm the best utility player out there, but I couldn't do this without her respecting the amount of time and effort that I put into this. This is a lifestyle. I don't get to do a lot of stuff sometimes because of this, but she has been with me every step of the way. And
she has raised your children into beautiful people too.
They're awesome, and that's our team. And thankfully I've been able, I get out of here and my hours are such that it's a long day, but I'm home with my family for dinner, and we've always had family dinner. She is put the attention on them, and I have as well. We've invested our time in them, and so I just needed to say that because I couldn't do this without her making me a better person. You know, to strive to be better.
Wow.
My folks, my mom, to have so many people be in your corner, and you know, my wife to her. For me, I just want to be better every day.
Well, I have to say that having
Yeah.
the passion for team sports and understanding team sports also creates the awareness of how to be on a team, how to be a good teammate, how to work together. And I've noticed that people who have played on teams, whether it's soccer, football, lacrosse, any kind of a team environment where you know it is give and take, you know, and you learn to work together to win. And partnerships of any sort, whether it's work partnerships, our home lives, our spouses, etc., the more you're about helping each other and being collaborative and going through life as a partnership, the teamwork does make the dream work. And I commend you for 25 years is spectacular. I know on Sunday, my husband and I, we have our 17-year wedding anniversary. And so I know how special those milestones are as the years of marriage goes by. And it's just, for us, I know it's just deeper and better and working together and learning to work together better every year. That is a true gift.
Thank you. Well, actually, I would say we've been together for 25 years. We've been married will be 23. So
wow.
We met her New Year's Eve, 1995. January 1st, 1995. December 3rd, 1994.
Well, that was the day that you really learned how blessed you were to be.
Yeah.
It was at, where was it?
Loyola family too. Say it again.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, congratulations on everything, Paul. You're great. Thanks for coming. Sorry about the technological glitches. I know there's a little bit of reverb back and forth sometimes, but and no, technology is not your favorite thing either. So it's great that you were able to come join us this way. So we really appreciate it.
No, I'm grateful. Thank you for allowing me to walk down memory lane with people here on Facebook with you guys.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? That's like the best. Memory lane. You guys have a deep history of memories and stories. Oh my God, stories for days, I'm sure, of all the shenanigans you guys are up to when you're in the Loyola days. In the hood. The boys in the hood of the West Side.
Well, you just blew my mind when you referenced Leon Cardini. I was like, I'm not ready for that. What? That's just like, that took me back 30 years.
Leon, yeah.
Let's see, hold on, I'm a little older than that. It took me back. Of course, I remember his motorcycle. Yeah. He was like a real life Fonzie at some way, right?
He was like Fonzie. He had his hair slicked back, right? Yeah. And you remember his sister Leona?
I do remember Leona, but not as much as I remember Leon. I think he scared me away.
Oh no, I remember Leona. And then and then the old Leon. Leon was the sweetest guy too. And then Leona had a great guy. Leona had a 5-year-old son. His name was Jason. You know, I mean, I really remember the dynamics of their family because they used to come to John O'Groats all the time. You know, and I remember they invited us to a party at their house, and it's directly behind the restaurant here. It's on air.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't even know the family that lives in it now.
I know.
There. You know, that was, oh God, yeah.
No, it's a bygone area of golden memories, and part of the reason you're still here is because of that history, that tapestry of memory. And that's such a wonderful thing to be able to share with the public, so they all understand the real love that goes behind the food and the product there at John O'Groats. Thank you, Polly.
Well, thanks, Paul, so much. Have a great weekend.
I will.
We'll see you definitely again. We'll be coming getting some more food.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate this opportunity.
Have a wonderful day, Polly.
Bye, Paul.
You take care.
All right.
Bye now. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow,
Sorry for
that's
the little
awesome.
bit of bandwidth glitch, but I know that there's so many stories that you and Paul have going back and forth. Because you also went to Loyola as well. I don't know. Were you there at the same time he was?
He's a year behind me, so
Okay.
yes. No, Paulie has a great history with my family, and that restaurant is dear. I think they're the very first recipient of our Heyler Hometown Hero Award. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes, they were the first.
And we kind of selected it because it was such a statement about who they are to the community, who they are to the area at large. You know, when I was young and younger than when they had started that breakfast joint, the place to eat in the morning was Junior's. Junior's was a deli over there on Westwood Boulevard, now vacant for inexplicably vacant for a very long time. And so these little things as life changes, it's nice to have those golden threads, and there's a certain sense of commonality. You know, what Paul was just able to share with me right there, and some of those memories, stimulations were, wow, I haven't thought about these people, but they're all little players in your life. And I think that's what he was saying about the restaurant, is they come through the restaurant, everybody has a role, everybody has a place in his life, and he recognizes that, and I think he uses it as fuel. And for any of the viewers who haven't been to John O'Groats or watching from afar, if you come to LA and you want to have a breakfast experience, you know, get in touch with us or go look up John O'Groats Restaurant. They have some absolutely fantastic breakfast. It's just comfort, soulful food, and I'm grateful for them.
And isn't it amazing? I mean,
because through all this COVID-19.
Yeah, didn't they have like Oprah come through there, and they had, I mean, they have all kinds of like pretty big
he's so humble.
spotlights.
He's really humble because he's had the biggest of the big. I mean, he's just had mega players, and he referenced it in slight. I mean, there are some industry players and some titans of industry that have come through there of magnitude. And I'm sure there are times when somebody walks through and he probably does a double take in one sense, but if he does it, you don't see him do it, because the way Paul carries himself is everybody's dignified, everybody is the same, and he sees that. So yeah, he's definitely, I mean, I know, because you all of a sudden you catch it shows up on some kind of feed somewhere that Oprah was over here, or LeBron James, or two of the more notable ones that I'm aware of, because they ended up in some form of what is that, E Magazine, or what's the other one,
like
TMZ?
People or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's Christy, your cousin, had said everyone's a VIP at John O'Groats, is what she wrote in the comment.
There you go. There you go.
She says everybody's a VIP. And I love the fact that he referenced the Jack McMillan portion of it, because I mean, that's why we own Heyler now, is that family connection you had, and your voice, everybody said your voice is very similar to what Jack McMillan's was. It's booming and it's deep and commanding, and I guess Jack had that same boisterous tone in his voice that you do.
Well, now it's me that's getting teary-eyed, because I haven't reflected on my uncle in a long time, and shit, sorry.
I told you the show is just last week was my week, now it's yours. And I have empathy crying, so if you start crying, I'm just gonna start crying.
No, I know. He was a man that people fashioned their lives after, and he was a shining example of what it meant to be a man. In terms of, he was so generous of heart. He physically, he was in my youth, was just a powerful man, and recognized for his strength and his athleticism and his competitiveness, his ferocity and intensity. But he translated that in his life as he evolved into this other, and I think it was really his family that just started to broaden him in so many ways, in his marriage with my Aunt Pat, where they really, when they started to really grow their family values came forward. And he decided at some level he was going to bring those family values to people who were struggling to achieve those. And he did it through home ownership. Like, he was really gregarious and really social and really helpful. There are many stories we've heard over the years, we've shared, you've heard them with me, where people come in and go, hey, I was divorced in the 70s, And at that time, women couldn't get loans if they weren't working, and in fact, I don't even know if they could get loans. It was still that mentality that was out there. And he would literally arrange it. He would go into the bank with them over here at the old Cal Fed, which was First Fed or whatever it was in the day. And he would, Cal Fed, he would walk in there and he'd go see his banker and he'd go shake their hand and say, I'm co-signing for that person. And he helped many, many people achieve home ownership that way. People that are still here to this day that have financially benefited or lived in the community and have been able to grow here and added to the fabric of it. So his legacy is important, and part of the reason we chose Heyler was it was this idea of values that go back over time. We're still consistently strong over time. This is 1927. There aren't many businesses that get to say that, and it's important to us. So recognizing my uncle and that history of it, and I love that he did reference it. It was very kind of him to do that, because I know my uncle had played, has played a role in many, many people's lives. And to this day, for you to say that I sound like him, some people say I may look like him a little bit, is a great compliment to me.
Yeah, well, we've had so many people and some of these women that were widowed or divorced that never did remarry, but they owned a home because of your Uncle Jack. And they've come into the office to tell the stories, and I just wanted you to know, or this was happening, or I found an old photo as I was cleaning something out, and can you believe this old photo of Heyler back when it was over here? Or, Uncle Jack was the one that helped us, get our house. And Jack was back in the 60s and 70s. He was the main real estate agent in this community. He was the one that helped, so many people buy and sell their houses.
He actually had several things that I really came to emulate and respect a ton. I will tell you that many of the agents that are very successful in the industry now practice the things that he really kind of originated in the community. He was a door knocker. He would go out and visit people all the time. He definitely used local services. At that time, we had local service people that could live here in the community. It's hard to afford to live here. But at that time, there was a local mailman that lived here. There was a local barber that lived here. There was the local. So he utilized all those services. In fact, there's a guy who's a jeweler down the street from me that lives there, and Roman is his name, and he's been there. Roman's like 96, and still driving and still vibrant. And when he talks about my uncle, there's so much he just gets so excited when he gets to talk about Jack. And so it's nice because it is a thread of legacy, right? It's part of what I am. And I've even brought in kind of that mastery of Zen that my father brings into it. So between that intensity and that strength of my uncle and my dad with this tremendous different kind of softer warmth, I feel very blessed indeed to have this business and to be where I live. And I would say that it's a large part of what makes me who I am today, and how I practice business and how we work together.
Yeah, well, I love these stories because I know that not only between your father having managed the John Douglas Company office and your Uncle Jack being a real estate agent at the Heyler Company back in the day, and he was from the 60s to the mid 90s, right? And the success of both of them in different areas, but in the same industry experience is amazing. And was Jack your dad's only brother?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Jack was a couple years older than my dad. They grew up on Kerwood Avenue, actually. I know that my dad attended Harvard when he was in the military. So yeah, there's a lot of history to it. It's kind of cool too, because you're right about that, where my uncle stayed very local and very small business in the Heyler Realty, a small little company, mom and pop shop, a few agents, kind of, very warm and loving. My dad went into the corporate environment, but he was the second or third person hired by John Douglas, period. And then John Douglas was to grow into a company at that time, which was considered large, of 2,500 agents, and was, a very corporate environment. And they both achieved those successes. And I'm grateful for it to this day, because if my uncle hadn't been practicing real estate, my father would have been practicing real estate, and I wouldn't be. And I love what we do, Jay. It's so much fun to have the successes that we get to have and reach people and connect with them profoundly and really understand what's most important to them. And that helps illuminate what's most important to us. And I think we make our difference one person at a time as we walk through this experience in building community, and we do it the vehicle of real estate. So Heyler Realty has got a lot of importance in my life for sure.
I love that the seller I met yesterday, you know, and she's been caretaking for her mom for a long time, and she got referred to us, and I did the walkthrough with her, and she said, I don't want a corporate company. I don't want to deal with a psycho agent. I want somebody who is smart, reasonable, and caretaking. And I said, well, check, check, and check. And she knew that obviously after she met me, and it went really well. But you know, it's like you don't have to be the millionaire agent type personality in this field, because the people who are attracted to that are not our people anyway. The people that we work with and help care for and guide through this process are the people that have a heart and a brain. And I do love to think that some of the smartest clients we get to work with love us the most, because they genuinely see the strategy and the thoughtfulness that goes behind what we do. And it's not a fly by night kind of a thing. It's like the heart and soul of who we are and what we put into it to have that impact and make sure they get the very best experience and outcome, you know?
Yeah,
so,
no, it's a super high level of accountability to your point. And I love that you illuminated that, because there are so many great stories in that. The people that are our people, we do connect with very profoundly, and we care about passionately, and we get to know them. So I'm dealing with the gentleman, the professor, who's selling his 35-year-old home in Santa Monica, and he's got a lot of emotional attachment to it. I've spent and he's a very learned man, highly educated, and to professor at Berkeley, like bright guy. And at the end of it, he goes, wow, I didn't realize how really complex this stuff is. And I said, well, you know, that's part of my job, is to make sure that you don't have to worry about those things. But yes, it is complicated, because if you want me to go through the contracts, I can. There's 50 paragraphs of legalese that can be a little exhausting talking about, but we spend a lot of time practicing and learning and experiencing and bringing it for you people and making sure that you are well taken care of. That's all we care about. End result. The money is a byproduct of that, right? Of loving people. It's like the abundance just flows when you really reach out and you take care of one another. It's almost like the universe rewards you. It just says, okay, you're taking care of other people, and that's making the world a better place. And I'm going to help take care of you. And that's been an ideology and a philosophy I've lived by for many years. And I know that in this industry, there's not a lot of people that do it soulfully. You know, there's a lot more people. I do recognize some of the two. I think my cousin found a really good company down there in Orange County, Arbor. They seem very soulful. And, you know, when I think of that as kind of an alignment, like, but it's rare, to your point, right? But I mean, for instance, your coaching, it's by referral only, which is all just about love, right? It's all about, I want you to refer me because you trust me to the people that you love. And that's an ideology you and I share in common. So again, I'm grateful for Facebook Friday, because it just illuminates all the great things in my life.
Well, and speaking of great things, I know one of my favorite people at our company is Kate Kennedy, and congrats to her for a great listing that should be going live today in Brentwood, listed right under 1.2 million, stunningly beautiful. And I'm excited for the activity she's going to get on that. But she is top to bottom, just a top-notch quality human being that is just, it's been tough to be like not seeing her every day like we have over the last few months of not all of us not being together. But she has been so productive and on top of it, and just knocking it out of the park with the people she's helping. And it's like watching a little you know, like one of your own kids, you know, growing and evolving into, like, you and I are her mom and dad, really, and in the real estate side of it. And she's grown into just, you know, reflection of who we are as our culture and philosophy.
I went to take a look, as I know you did, at some of the work that she was preparing, because she, you know, our agents like do that. They send it to us to kind of have our eyes look at it. And
I dotted T cross.
What I loved about it, I was like, okay, I actually don't do that as well as she does. I was so proud of her. I was like, wow, Kate, that's outstanding. So kudos to Kate. And I'm sure she's going to, you know, for those who are listening, man, it is, I can't say it's completely inexplicable, But I would say low interest rates have driven a market. And if you knew anybody who was thinking of selling, this is a time to ring the dinner bell. Strategy is really working and people are getting top dollars for their homes right at the moment.
Got 7 properties I'm touring this afternoon. Right after we get off of this show, I gotta grab something to eat on the road, and I gotta pop on some tours. We have 7 houses we're gonna see for our buyer today, so it's gonna be a hot and busy afternoon. I gotta sign off. I love you, man. That was a great trip down memory lane. I knew it would be with Paul, and I knew you guys would have some really great stories to share. So thank you for that and bringing him on today.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Go get